Before you begin, please note these safety concerns. Work in a well-ventilated area, such as the sculpture studio. The exhaust fan for this area is actually located in the ceramic studio through these doors. Just inside the studio, on the right, the fan switch is located on the wall, beneath these cabinets. Be sure both cabinet doors are open. The drawing studio is also a good place to work. Again, the exhaust is on your right-hand side. The fan switch is again on the wall beneath the cabinets. Handle wintergreen oil with care. Be sure not to get it in your eyes or mouth. Do not eat food while working with wintergreen oil. No food or drink is allowed in the studios. Emergency contact numbers are posted in each studio, just in case you were to ingest wintergreen oil. Before you begin, gather all needed materials. You'll need various Xerox copies. Make plenty of extras so you can experiment. An X-Acto knife. Extra X-Acto blades, of course. Bristol board. A number 6 watercolor brush or some Q-tips. Wintergreen oil. And several burnishing tools such as a bone folder, a spoon, a dull pencil, a ballpoint pen, and various other items to experiment with. Begin by deciding which copy you'd like to work with. You'll also need some masking tape or artist tape. It's a good idea to secure the Bristol board with a couple of pieces of tape across the top. Flip over the copy so it's face down, and secure the top edge with a couple of pieces of tape. You'll also need a watercolor palette or a small cup. Carefully pour a small amount of wintergreen oil into the palette or cup. Make sure the lid is tight. Begin by brushing a small amount of oil over a small area of the copy. Wintergreen oil evaporates pretty quickly, so you'll only be able to work with small areas. Using one of the burnishing tools, gently rub back and forth across the paper. Try to be as even and consistent as possible. It's helpful to burnish the copy down from another direction. Work the tool back and forth from multiple directions to get even pressure applied. You can peel up the copy to check your progress. Just lay it back down, and if it's not dark enough, you can keep working. Experiment with holding the tool in different ways. Use the point of the tool, a sharp edge, hold it at an angle. Experiment with different results. Notice the pattern of your mark making translates right through the paper. When you're satisfied, keep working. Just move to another small area, apply another small amount of wintergreen oil, and continue burnishing. Check your progress regularly. Be careful that the patches of wintergreen oil don't overlap. You might end up making one area twice as dark if you work over it twice. Also, don't get carried away. A little bit of wintergreen oil goes a long way. It's not necessary to keep applying more and more oil. Take your time. Otherwise, you might completely obliterate all the detail of your imagery. Areas of high contrast will probably show up better. You can also use the point of the tool to make harder marks and essentially draw lines right through the Xerox. Experiment with different patterns and different approaches to the mark making. There's no one right way to do this. Experimentation is key. Since you can't actually see the image you're making unless you peel up the paper, sometimes it can be difficult to know where you're working. You might find it helpful to use a light box or tape your Xerox copy face down on a window so that you can draw the edges of the form. You can refer to these lines to figure out exactly what part of the image you're working on while you're making the transfer. If your Xerox copy has a dark background, it may be difficult to find the edge of the form. Be careful that you don't cut off part of the shadow. Here, for example, if I follow the edge of the shadow, I'll end up cutting into the wrist. You can carefully use these lines to guide you as you work. Here I'm only transferring the figure and not the background. Look for any small areas of white that you might have missed, and go back and fill in those areas. Here's another copy with a lighter background. I actually drew on this image some before I Xeroxed it. Here I'm experimenting with a different tool, a ballpoint pen, which has a much finer, harder point, so you can apply pressure in much more specific areas and make much darker lines. Here I'm just playing around with the little image of a fingerprint. Unfortunately, this technique only works if the wintergreen oil is still wet. Here the paper is too dry, so nothing's going to transfer through. I'll try again on this finger. The lines show through, but I haven't burnished over this area yet, so it simply appears as an outline. Take your time and keep working. Remember to only work in one small area at a time. At first your image may not look like much, but be patient. Eventually it will begin to develop. Here I'm playing with another tool, a dull pencil, just to try to make some marks through the transfer. In this image I wanted a lighter background, so I draped a white cloth over my hand when I put it on the copy machine. If you want to have a completely white background, you could actually cut the figure out of the Xerox with an X-Acto knife. Once you've flipped it over and taped it down, just begin the process again, working on one small area at a time. Here I have to be very careful to hold the Xerox down so that I don't pull it up or tear it. I'm using a lot of pressure with the tool here. You can see it's almost starting to tear through the paper. You'll need to experiment with the amount of pressure you use. You may have to work over some areas more than once to layer up the value and get it dark enough. Experimentation and trial and error are keys to success with this process. You'll need to be willing to start over, throw things away, and try again. And of course, have fun.